Adrian was convinced that I was his future wife and pursued me diligently for 10 years to win me over. However, on the eve of our wedding, I overheard his conversation with a friend. "Are you really marrying Claire like this? What about that little girlfriend you've been seeing secretly?" Adrian paused for a moment. "She's just a substitute, how can she compare to Claire? If she doesn't make a fuss, I'll consider keeping her around. Claire is very magnanimous, she won't mind." As a result, the next day, his little girlfriend caused a scene at the wedding. When she pushed me heavily off the stage, Adrian disregarded everything and rushed to protect her. It was only because she held a shard of glass to her neck, threatening hysterically, "Choose me or Claire." Adrian, in extreme panic, directly pushed away the injured me and angrily said, "Get away, I need to take her to the hospital. If anything happens to her, I'll make you pay with your life." At that moment, my heart died. That night, I bought a ticket to go abroad overnight and left his side. "Claire, can't you sign the consent form for the surgery yourself? You're calling me multiple times just for this? Just because Vivian got hurt, do you have to fall and fracture your bone too? I'm already exhausted, please don't add more trouble for me." Adrian's voice, laced with faint anger and impatience, came from the other end of the phone. Since Vivian caused the scene at the wedding, he had already disappeared with her for a full half-day. This was the 20th call I made to him. The previous 19 were all hung up without exception. I paused at his cold tone and pleaded, "It was Vivian who pushed me. The doctor said a family member must be called. Since you're already at the hospital, can't you come over in a few minutes to sign?" However, Adrian's response was to hang up the phone forcefully. Facing the expected outcome, I sighed, "Bring the surgery consent form, I'll sign it myself." The doctor hesitated. "Why don't you contact Mr. Adrian again? Maybe he didn't hear clearly. Yesterday, he even called all the doctors in the hospital to be on standby, saying that if Vivian unwillingly caused trouble at the wedding and hurt you, we should treat you immediately. In the past, for even a minor cold of yours, Mr. Adrian would call all doctors for a consultation and personally guard your bedside for 3 days and nights. If he knew you had a fracture, and it was done by Vivian, he would definitely fly into a rage. After all, you are the most important in his heart." I gave a bitter smile. I once thought I was the one he loved the most. But now it seems that's not the case. Under my insistence, the doctor finally gave me the consent form to sign myself. Until the last moment before surgery, I was still giving Adrian a chance, waiting for him to come see me. But all I waited for was a Facebook post from Vivian. In the animated photo, Adrian was holding a bowl of steaming porridge, carefully blowing it cool and feeding it to Vivian, and tucking her in. The caption was, "You said 3 years of companionship is the greatest luck, and you'll respond to my feelings with the rest of your life." Vivian smiled with immense happiness. It's hard to imagine that just a few days ago, she went out drinking because Adrian abruptly broke up with her. After getting drunk, she came running, tears streaming, pointing at my nose and cursing bitterly. I've been Adrian's secret girlfriend for 3 years, giving him everything. But he never touched me, saying that you, Claire, are his only future wife. What makes you deserve his favoritism? I imitated you by making soup for him, but Adrian slapped me, saying I'm inferior to you in every way, not as good-looking, not as gentle in personality, and told me not to imitate the ugly. Her emotions were extremely agitated. He also said I'm just a substitute he found when bored, and once you return to the country, he'll make me leave. Claire, why did you have to return? Wouldn't it be better if you died abroad? At that time, Adrian was furious because she offended me, directly slapping her face and unhesitatingly driving her out. His eyes stared coldly at Vivian, full of disgust, saying, "We've already broken up, don't come entangling me again. How dare you curse Claire? I think you're crazy. If you want to die so much, go die yourself. Claire is my white moonlight, I won't have anyone else in my eyes besides her." But today at the wedding, he unhesitatingly rushed to Vivian again. As if afraid of losing some treasure, he panicked and sent her to the hospital for rescue. My fracture surgery was completed quickly, and I woke up after the anesthesia wore off. but Adrian suddenly opened the door to my ward and hurried in. I thought he had a conscience and came to see me, but unexpectedly, the first thing he did was pull my forehand from under the blanket and rudely flip it over. Not finding it, he angrily questioned me. "Claire, where's your wedding ring? Take it out quickly." My hand was yanked fiercely, and the foreneedle hurt a lot inside. But I didn't answer him immediately. Instead, I asked, "What do you want my ring for?" That ring was personally designed by me with a lot of effort and hand-polished over several months. It was the proof of our lifelong commitment. "Vivian likes it. She said she wants to wear couple rings with me." "Just give it to her to play with. It's just a crappy ring, no diamonds, not worth much." While speaking, he saw I had placed the ring in the corner of the table, unhesitatingly picked it up, and turned to leave. I got up to snatch it, almost forgetting my leg couldn't move. But my hand still clung tightly to the ring without letting go. "Give it back." Adrian looked at me with eyes full of disappointment. "Claire, I remember you used to be quite magnanimous. How did you become like this? Even fussing over such a small thing." I said, "If you insist on taking it, then we'll break up." Adrian was stunned. He knelt directly on the ground, asking incredulously, "What did you say?" His voice unsteady. "Our 10 years of relationship, in your eyes, can be let go just like that? Don't you know I can't live without you? I won't allow you to break up with me." I looked at him coldly, saying with a chilled heart, "But Adrian, it was you who abandoned me first for Vivian." Adrian burrowed into my arms, hugging me tightly. "It's not like that, I only pity Vivian. She was so agitated she wanted to commit suicide. I had no choice but to comfort her first. Once she recovers, I'll come back and hold a wedding with you, trust me." Looking at Adrian's somewhat agitated face, I nodded and said, "Okay." He then breathed a long sigh of relief and left reassured. But he took the ring with him and didn't return it to me. I touched my empty ring finger, picked up the phone, and called my former colleague abroad. "Can you help me ask the professor if there are still spots in the lab? I want to go back and continue my research." The voice on the other end sounded very happy. "Really? When you left, the professor was so sad. Now knowing you're coming back, he'll definitely be excited. I'll go ask for you right now." "But weren't you going to get married? Won't it be inconvenient to be separated from your husband later?" I subconsciously wanted to make excuses for Adrian, but after thinking, I found it ridiculous. So I said, "He's dead, he won't affect my work anymore." After hanging up, I bought a ticket to fly back abroad in advance. Then I handled the discharge alone and went home to recuperate. Vivian showed off her love on Facebook every day. I saw her post about Adrian buying her haute couture clothes and photographing expensive jewelry. I saw her and Adrian holding hands, with the diamond ring snatched from my hand on her finger. I saw them taking several sets of wedding photos, with Vivian captioning, 3 years of underground romance, finally able to love openly. Adrian also reposted it, but deleted it seconds later, afraid I'd see it. As a cover, he reposted his mother's 60th birthday invitation. Before the wedding, Adrian had specifically mentioned his mother's birthday to me, instructing me to go and celebrate with him as husband and wife. Adrian's mother also held my hand, enthusiastically inviting me to her home. Although the wedding didn't happen, I still went to Adrian's mother's house with gifts. But as soon as I pushed the door open, I saw an unexpected scene. The banquet had already started, with all relatives present. Adrian and his mother were sitting with one seat between them, and the person surrounded in the middle was actually Vivian. Adrian's mother picked a shrimp with chopsticks and put it in Vivian's bowl, instructing, "Vivian has lost weight recently, eat more to nourish yourself." Adrian glanced lightly at his mother. "Mom, she's very picky, she won't peel the shrimp herself, insists I do it for her." Even so, Adrian still picked out the shrimp, peeled it for her, and personally fed it into her mouth. Only I stood there alone, appearing particularly lonely and awkward. Suddenly, someone noticed me and called out in surprise, "Claire?" When Adrian looked over at me, his face changed dramatically. "Why are you here? I think my mom didn't invite you today." Without waiting for my answer, he came over, pulled me, and walked out. With my fracture, I was still on crutches and almost fell from his pull. I immediately tried hard to shake off his hand. "Don't pull me, I'll walk myself." Adrian's tone was somewhat cold. "Claire, I don't know what your purpose is for coming today, but no one notified you to attend my mother's birthday. If you want to use this opportunity to assert sovereignty and steal Vivian's limelight, you're not welcome here." I felt quite surprised and shocked. "What are you saying? It was clearly you who instructed me to come." Adrian opened his mouth, a flash of guilt passing. "I don't remember. Who knows if you're lying?" Adrian's mother also chased out and said to me, "Claire, Vivian has been in a bad mood lately, so I asked Adrian to bring her for a meal. Can you leave first? Lest she sees you and gets stimulated." One by one, they seemed to have forgotten all the words they said to me before. "But that's fine, since I'm not welcome, there's no need for me to stay." I nodded, just about to leave, when Vivian came out. She actually took the initiative to retain me. "Mom, Adrian, you're overthinking. I'm not that petty. Sister Claire is injured and came all this way limping. It's not easy, so don't leave. Let's eat together." I pretended not to notice the triumph in her eyes and said faintly, "No thanks, appreciate your kindness." But Adrian sidestepped to block me. "Displeased, you stay for me. Vivian doesn't mind your uninvited arrival and even gave you a step down. You're not seeing it and brushing off her face? If you dare leave today, our wedding is directly cancelled. Don't forget you've already quit your job abroad for me. If you leave me again, you'll have nothing." I was stunned. Adrian had pursued me bitterly for 10 years behind me. I originally had no intention of being with him. Until on the road, when a truck rushed over, he unhesitatingly pushed me away and blocked it with his body. Before being taken away by the ambulance, he still held my hand tightly. "As long as I can save you, I'm willing to pay with my life, just hoping you'll give me a chance in the next life." I was finally deeply moved by him, quit my research job abroad, and returned to the country regardless of everything to marry him. But to think that my act of loving him has now become a handle for him to manipulate. I took a deep breath. Whatever, cancel it then. Then I left without hesitation. I didn't notice the fleeting bewilderment in Adrian's eyes. That night, I went home and packed all my luggage, preparing to go to the airport early the next morning. But I didn't expect Adrian to come back in the middle of the night. He was stunned seeing the somewhat empty home. "Where's our photo wall? Where are the photos you took for me during travels?" I casually replied. "They fell on the ground and broke. I threw them away." Adrian hugged me from behind. "Why aren't you looking at me? Angry?" He sighed. Why can't you just soften up? Today with so many relatives there, I brought Vivian in front of them, and you suddenly appeared. How awkward the scene was. If you had just put down the gift and left, there wouldn't be so many issues." Suddenly, I felt him grab my hand and slip something onto my ring finger. It was a lady's ring, but not the original one I had. "Don't throw a tantrum, I'll fulfill my promise to you. Tomorrow, we'll make up for our wedding. Vivian won't appear to disturb us anymore. Promise me, be on time tomorrow, okay?" As he said that, he was about to kiss my face, but I dodged. Adrian's face changed slightly, just about to say something, when Vivian's exclusive ringtone sounded. He immediately got up hurriedly and ran out of the room to answer the phone. Shortly after, he instructed me, "I have to go out. Remember to be on time at the wedding site tomorrow." The door slammed shut. Another sleepless night. I had no intention of going to the wedding, but after thinking, I still went, just to return the ring to Adrian. But when I arrived at the site, I was stunned because the bride wasn't me, but Vivian. The huge poster had Vivian's name written on it, and she herself was wearing a white wedding dress, holding flowers, smiling, welcoming guests. Seeing me, she immediately smiled. "Claire, you didn't think today's wedding was really prepared for you, did you? Adrian promised long ago to hold the wedding with me today, but it was me who said I wanted you to witness our marriage in person, so he called you. You should thank me, otherwise, you wouldn't even have entry qualification." Saying that, she suddenly showed a meaningful smile. My inner alarm bells rang, but it was too late. She threw the thorny roses in her hand harshly at my face, instantly scratching long cuts on my face. Blood dripped, my vision a scarlet red. And when Adrian saw this, he quickly ran over and heavily pushed me aside. He looked at me with eyes full of disappointment, furiously saying, "Claire, I kindly invited you to our wedding, why did you attack Vivian? Didn't I already give you the ring? What more do you want? Originally, I still wanted to get a marriage certificate with you, now you've ruined that yourself." With a grim face, he pulled Vivian away, and through my scarlet vision, I saw Vivian's triumphant smile. I covered my face, struggled for a long time to stand up from the ground, trembling hands placing a letter and the ring at the door. Then, without looking back, I turned to the airport. Adrian and Vivian had already walked to the stage at the wedding site. Adrian slowly pushed the ring onto Vivian's finger, asking her, "Will you marry me?" Vivian, full of smiles, was about to speak when suddenly someone rushed into the wedding site. The bodyguard hurriedly held the letter and ring in hand. "Mr. Adrian, bad news, Miss Claire has left. She bought a flight abroad, the plane is about to take off. Don't mind the wedding, go chase her back quickly." After getting out of the taxi, I walked into the airport. Turning on my phone, I saw a message from my former colleague saying the professor is willing to reserve my original position for me. I breathed a sigh of relief and immediately replied that I would report tomorrow. Everything had come full circle back to the starting point, as if it were all for nothing. No one expected we would end up like this. After all, since Adrian fell for me at 15, he never hid his affection. Everyone around could see he liked me to death, even joking, "Adrian's family is rich, he's good-looking, and devoted, you might as well accept him." But at that time I was completely oblivious, a bookworm who only knew studying. I devoted myself to studies, setting significant goals for myself. No one could stop my progress, let alone make me give up my future. Therefore, I often treated Adrian, who surrounded me, as air. When he chatted and courted me, it went in one ear and out the other. When he gave me roses and chocolates, I directly threw them in the trash and left. Classmates around said I was too ruthless to him. But that's how I got into a prestigious university and gained the opportunity to study abroad. After I went abroad, Adrian not only didn't give up but pursued even harder. He flew over every week to see me, even running to our school's party to confess publicly, "I love you." That was the first time I had a strange feeling towards Adrian. Amid the booing from the surrounding crowd, I suddenly met his eager eyes. It was as if a string in my mind suddenly snapped, finally glimpsing a bit of the true face of the emotional world. From then on, I couldn't treat him as a stranger anymore, unknowingly falling in his repeated offensives. Later, when he got injured in a car accident to protect me, it was the first time I experienced anxiety. That's when I realized Adrian had become indispensable in my life. So I accepted his love, started being devoted to him, even quitting my research job abroad because of his complaint, "Every time I visit you, I have to fly half a day," delaying a lot of work, ending the long distance. But Adrian never told me that during these years of pursuing me, he had someone like Vivian by his side. Although others said she was my substitute, how can true love have something replaceable? Perhaps Adrian didn't love me, but loved my indifference to him. Having figured this out, I no longer dwelled on it. After turning off my phone, I boarded the plane and set off for the long-missed abroad. Meanwhile at the wedding, Adrian was affectionately exchanging rings with Vivian. The bodyguard's intrusion made the scene quiet for a moment. Adrian frowned displeased. "What are you coming in now for? Can't you see the ceremony is ongoing?" The bodyguard wiped his sweat and handed the letter. "It's about Miss Claire, she left a farewell letter at the door and has probably left now. Do you want to go chase her back?" In the past, Adrian cared about every matter concerning Claire, which made people around him form the habit of reporting even small things. Adrian stood still, his gaze falling on the envelope in the bodyguard's hand, frowning. He scolded, "Get out. This is my and Vivian's wedding, don't mention anything about Claire." The bodyguard was stunned, apologized repeatedly, and turned to leave. Adrian's gaze remained locked, seeming to want to chase, but he controlled himself. Vivian suddenly spoke, "Sister Claire is really something, playing such a joke at this time. I know she never liked me, but she can't disturb our wedding this way. She even bribed the bodyguard to deliver the letter, really went to great lengths. Right, Adrian? Adrian suddenly snapped back, subconsciously nodding. This Claire, I thought she wasn't the type to do such things, I misjudged her, using such underhanded tricks. Let's continue the ceremony, ignore her. Saying that, he pushed the ring onto Vivian's finger. He kissed her forehead. Vivian smiled and asked him, Adrian, are you willing to spend the rest of your life with me? Adrian subconsciously wanted to say that he only promised Vivian a wedding, just going through the motions, not involving a lifetime, he was to spend his life with Claire. But the words changed at his mouth, I do. The whole venue erupted in enthusiastic applause, but Adrian felt empty inside. He scanned the venue looking for a familiar figure, to see if she was joking with him, but found no trace. After stepping down, he impatiently asked acquaintances, where's Claire? Everyone shook their heads, saying they hadn't seen her. A surge of anger rose in Adrian. This Claire, how can she not understand words? I instructed her several times to come to today's wedding, where has she run off to now? If she doesn't appear again, don't think I'll get the certificate with her today. He was just about to pick up his phone to call Claire when Vivian came. She took the phone away from Adrian, sighed, Adrian, you're too soft-hearted and impatient, that's why Claire takes advantage, always maintaining a superior posture in front of you. Think about how many years you pursued her bitterly? If you keep being subservient for the rest of your life, won't you get tired? Contacting now might play into her hands, let her hang for a while, and she'll learn. Adrian was hesitating when he heard Vivian say again, didn't you say today you'd listen to me completely? He felt guilty towards Vivian, and upon hearing this, he immediately complied with her every wish. He let Vivian lead him through the guests, showing off and toasting everywhere. When the wedding completely ended, it was already very late. Adrian helped the drunken Vivian into the car, then called Claire. Sorry, the number you dialed is powered off. Then came the busy tone beep beep beep. His face darkened, and he left a voicemail for Claire. What are you doing? I just came back a bit late from the wedding, do you have to throw a tantrum this way? You're at home now, right? I'm bringing Vivian back now, don't pull that half-dead face anymore, it's annoying to look at. Adrian, don't owe you. After saying that, he put down the phone and drove home. But at the door, no one came out to open it for him. Adrian, holding Vivian with one arm, struggled to take out the key with the other to twist the lock open. Vivian rolled over on the sofa, saying drunkenly, Adrian, I'm hungry, I want to eat. Adrian then strode to my room door in a few steps and started banging on it. Claire! Come out. Vivian is drunk, come take care of her. Did you hear? She said she's hungry, aren't you good at cooking? Come out and cook her a bowl of porridge. However, there was no movement inside the room, Adrian began to hesitate. He listened at the door for a moment, thinking the lack of response was due to sadness. So he softened his tone, Claire, don't throw a tantrum, okay? But still no movement inside. Adrian panicked, turned the doorknob, and found it opened easily. Pushing the door, he found the room clean as if no one had lived there, with only a box on the table right in front. Adrian opened it and found all the things he had once given to Claire. Above the box was a sticky note, a relationship with 3 people is too crowded, I withdraw. Wishing Mr. Adrian and Miss Vivian 100 years of harmony and early birth of a noble son. The note slipped from Adrian's hand. He picked up his phone to call the bodyguard from daytime. As soon as the other answered, he impatiently asked, is the letter you picked up really written by Claire? Where has she gone now? The other said, Mr. Adrian, it's true, I checked the surveillance, Miss Claire left after putting it down that day. The letter says she wants to break up with you and return abroad, so I asked if you want to chase her back. But since now you only have Miss Vivian in your heart, then no need to care. Adrian couldn't help roaring, shut up, what do you know? Quickly check which flight Claire took, I'm going to find her now. He hurriedly put on his coat to go out, but Vivian sobered up a bit. Stumbling, she chased and grabbed him, hugging him, mumbling, "Adrian, shall we have our wedding night tonight?" But Adrian directly shook her off, coldly saying, "Claire is missing. I have no time to play with you now. Get away yourself." Vivian's drunkenness sobered more than half instantly, standing dazed. "How could you?" But Adrian had already hurriedly driven to the airport. In the morning, the plane landed, arriving at the other side of the ocean. As soon as I turned on my phone, I found countless missed calls and messages. Adrian seemed to realize I had really left and disappeared, so he panicked, asking where I was, saying he would come find me. I originally wanted to block him, but thinking of his persistent character in pursuing me before, he would definitely change numbers to message me again, so I directly set Do Not Disturb and went to report to school. I returned to the days of solitary research, quiet yet lonely. The only difference was the absence of that figure always following me. I was both leisurely and content. This was the life I had dreamed of for a long time. Adrian's appearance briefly disoriented me, making me lose my original intention, but fortunately, I'm back on the right path now. It's just that my lab colleagues were always cautious when interacting with me, avoiding any topics related to marriage, love, or life and death. Until one time I couldn't help asking, "Why do you always avoid me?" They looked at each other before revealing the truth. "Someone told us your husband passed away. We're afraid you'd be sad, so we never mention these in front of you." That's when I remembered my casual words before, but explaining now seemed too late. I smiled awkwardly. "That's the case, but it's okay, I'm almost out of the shadow." Just as the words fell, I heard a voice from behind. "Claire." It was Adrian with a grim face striding this way. I stood up abruptly, smiled awkwardly to my colleagues. "I have something," leaving first. I fled outward as if escaping, but Adrian chased closely behind. My leg still hadn't fully recovered, so I gave up running and directly sat down to rest. Adrian was somewhat angry. "Why are you running? Do you think I'll eat you?" "Claire, how could you leave without a word? Do you know how long I've been looking for you? Stop messing around, come back with me quickly. My mom said tomorrow is an auspicious day, go back and get the certificate with me." I said calmly, "I won't go back with you. Giving up my ideal career once was already stupid, I won't do it a second time. We've already broken up, no discussion on this." Adrian gritted his teeth. I didn't agree. "However," I said, "lower your voice, don't shout, it's embarrassing." Adrian choked, staring at me incredulously. He didn't understand why I treated him this way, but he had treated me the same before. I thought Adrian could understand my meaning and retreat knowingly. But unexpectedly, he stayed and didn't leave, following even closer than when pursuing me initially. I sighed. "Indeed, for you, only what you can't get is the best. Once obtained, you won't cherish it, right?" Adrian was stunned. "What?" After understanding the meaning in my words, his face looked ugly. "Claire, how can you think that? Where didn't I cherish you? Wasn't I good enough to you? Whatever you wanted, I bought for you. Wherever you wanted to go, I took you. I just stayed with Vivian for a few days, and you have to make it like this?" I didn't answer his question, just shrugged, smiling ambiguously at him. "Since you think so, I can't help it. How about this? I agree to reconcile with you." Adrian looked up at me, eyes full of hope. "But there are preconditions. I won't have only you by my side, I want to be with my senior in the lab. If you're sick, I won't visit you. Wherever you want to go, I absolutely won't accompany you. If you two conflict, I'll only protect the senior, the wedding will be with the senior too. If I'm in a good mood, maybe I can coax you." Adrian listened with brows almost twisted. "Claire, don't go too far." "You know it's too far?" I laughed out loud. "This is clearly what you did to me." Adrian was completely stunned, opened his mouth but said nothing. After a moment of silence, he said, "Sorry, I really didn't realize. Because you gave me full security, I subconsciously thought you'd always be by my side and not leave. So I unknowingly leaned towards Vivian, always thinking I could find you after coaxing her. Please, give me another chance." I shook my head, saying somewhat regretfully, "It's too late, really too late. I'm grateful you taught me what love is, but when I loved you with all my might, you exhausted my love." Hearing this, Adrian was completely stunned. His tears suddenly flowed, unable to stop. He always understood me, knowing my quiet personality, never losing temper with people. Even when he pestered me the most, insisting on pulling me to play all night before an exam, causing me to miss the exam the next day, I hadn't been so distant with him. Speaking with this attitude was already the most resolute farewell. After a long silence, Adrian reached to wipe the tears from his face, nodded, and said, "I understand." Then he suddenly turned and left, his back tense, seeming to tremble with sobs. Shortly after he left, my phone received a message. "Claire, wait for me, I'll use actions to make you forgive me. Before I agree to break up, you're not allowed to get too close to other men." I turned and went to the lab, found a senior I was familiar with, and directly asked him, "Senior, can you help me?" I took a photo holding hands with the senior, the two hands tightly intertwined in the photo. I directly posted it on Facebook, without blocking anyone. The next second, my phone started vibrating crazily. Adrian shouted collapsed on the other end, "Claire, who is that person? How just after I left, you hooked up with someone else? Did you cheat while we were together? Otherwise, how seamless and fast?" I replied leisurely, "This is none of your business. Anyway, remember, whoever I'm with, it won't be you." After saying that, I hung up, letting Adrian hysteria on the other end. Perhaps he was really hurt by that Facebook post, staying silent for a long time without appearing before me. I focused on completing my research work, published a paper in a top journal, and incidentally won an award for academic research achievements. After the professor learned, he patted my shoulder, extremely gratified. "Claire, I knew you were a good seed, you're born for academic research. Last time you left for marriage, I was very sad but helpless, good that you're back." I didn't speak, smiling and nodding in agreement. At that year's student graduation ceremony, I was naturally designated as the outstanding representative to speak. After the speech, the whole audience applauded thunderously. When the spotlight, accompanied by the crowd's exclamations, shone on a certain spot, I turned my head following the light and saw Adrian's figure. He walked towards me with roses, wearing a suit, eyes full of deep affection. The scene seemed to slowly overlap with that year. That's how I fell in love with him once. Adrian publicly handed the roses to me, observing my expression, cautiously opening, "Claire, I'm back." He took out a jewelry box, devoutly taking out a diamond ring from inside. It was the one I had handmade for him back then. When he spoke again, he was somewhat choked. "I also found this ring back for you, come back to my side, okay?" The on-site people unaware of the truth booed except him. But I smiled slightly and directly left the stage. Adrian hurriedly chased behind me, came forward to grab my hand. "Look at me, this is the ring you handmade for me back then, don't you want it anymore?" I just answered, "You forgot, I said whoever I'm with, it won't be you. I quit my job for you. Just say the word, and I'll stay abroad." Adrian knelt directly, looking up pleading. "I also made Vivian leave, announced complete severance with her, she will never appear before us again. Just your word, and we can live happily ever after. I'm sure no one you find will treat you this well. So why not just try being with me, Claire?" He said all the good words, speaking rapidly, afraid I'd leave if not careful. I coldly shook him off. "You leave, don't block the way. If you entangle me one more minute, I'll report harassment." With a bang, Adrian slumped to the ground. He seemed heartbroken, eyes wide, sobbing incredulously. "I pursued you for 10 years to get you, we could have lived well, what exactly happened to become like this?" What happened, only he knows best in his heart. He should be responsible for his actions. After that day, Adrian seemed overly persistent. He still followed me every day non-stop, just to repeatedly ask one question. "Claire, do you really not love me anymore? What exactly happened between us?" I said nothing, just kept reporting to the police. Until finally, because he entered the police station too many times, he was taken for psychological testing. His mother flew over hurriedly to take him back to the country to a mental hospital for treatment. Before leaving, Adrian's mom asked me, "Adrian didn't commit any big mistake, why can't you forgive him?" I didn't speak. For some people, reasoning doesn't work. In that case, prove it with actions. My forgiveness will never be given to those who hurt me.